Welcome to Parent Communication, a Radical Approach webinar. We are so happy that you are here and that we have our presenter back with us. He is part of the EA family, Eric Kelley. Yay, yay. I am Dr. Desiree Alexander. I am the founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, and I am your host for today. Now, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, no, you don't get a certificate, but you do get the knowledge. And underneath the video, you will see in the description, you will see the actual resources, the resources for this webinar. So make sure that you get that. All right. Next, what do we have coming up? Well, next weekend, we have the amazing Miss Robbins talking about self-care for educators. See, you do not want to miss that. And then we have, I'm going to be at IdeaCon. Yay! I just left FETC and TCEA, all of the acronyms. So now I'm going to IdeaCon around Chicago. What's up, Chicago? What's up, Illinois? So I'm going to be there on February 14th. Then we have creating assessments to engage the modern learner with Canva. So if you're like, hey, I already use Canva, I want to know how to use it more. Or you're like, hey, what's Canva? Come and find out about how to create assessments using Canva. Accommodations and modifications. Dr. Marilyn is coming back. She just did one about differentiation and scaffolding. She's coming back to talk about accommodations and modifications. Creating brave spaces in English classrooms, equity in action. Again, one that you do not want to miss. Dr. So-Sung, she is awesome. And then empowering student voice with tech tools. We have the amazing Debbie. She's going to actually do 2 more for us. She's definitely done some in the past and we love them. And then I am going to be doing a BER. Now this is an actual paid session for ELA teachers. You can check that out, see if that's something you would like to come to virtually. And then we're doing digital storytelling in the classroom with the amazing Victoria Thompson. Excuse me. I'm getting so excited. I'm choking myself. Then we have Tech Up Math with Debbie again. And then educational leadership. That person looks so familiar. She's so pretty. Educational leadership, SLLA, test prep, logistics, and mindset. So if you're one of those people that need to take the SLLA test for educational leadership certification, you may want to come and find out some more information about it. And then we have affinity groups, creating a space for self-advocacy for Muslim and Arab female students. So even if you're like, okay, I may not have any Muslim or Arab female students, I may not have female students, maybe I work at an all-male school, I don't know. You still want to come and learn about how to create a space for self-advocacy, right? So definitely show up for that one. I really can't wait for this one. And then we have ISTE. Now this is my schedule so far for ISTE, but if you've ever been to ISTE, you know that schedules expand throughout the summer until the event. So I'm sure this will be updated, but for now I will be at ISTE. And then we have NFTS. So you've been hearing about all of this AI stuff. You want to come and start learning what's happening in education, right? This is what you need to know. These are the new things that are happening, all of the AI stuff. Rochelle did a webinar for us really recently about just AI in education. So you may want to go check that out on my YouTube channel, but you keep hearing about this chat GPT and all these AI kind of things. You want to be in the know, right? Don't stick your head in the sand, be in the know. Even if you're like, oh, that's not for me, you still want to know what's going on because it's here. Welcome to Education 2023 and beyond. And then we have learning in the metaverse, again, part of the AI system that's happening in our education world. So again, come and be in the know. And these are in the fall. And then, of course, we always have our self-paced courses, all about test prep, either SLLA or Google certification and all that kind of stuff. And then tell me what you want to learn in 2023. This little graphic is on the website. So you can tell me what you want to learn or tell me what you want to teach. Woo! That was a lot. We're not even done for this year of EA webinars, y'all. Ooh, I'm tired already. But let's get what you came here for, which is parent communication.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this morning. There are a lot of places you could have been, and I'm honored you chose to be with me. I see at least one familiar face, one of my old classmates from Union University, and I really appreciate Sabrina joining this morning. Our alma mater is celebrating its 200th anniversary this week, so that's an exciting time for our school. Going to talk about parent communication today, and I'm calling it a radical approach. A little bit about me before we get going. This is me. This is my wife. I still refer to myself as a newlywed. Michelle and I got married about 1.5 years ago. Native of Oakland, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis. My wife is from Marion, Arkansas, and so we now live in Marion. I teach in the West Memphis School District at East Junior High. There's a picture of our school. Sadly, this is the last year that East will exist. We have a long history since 1969, and the West Memphis School District is merging 2 small schools. We're getting a nice new building next year, and so we will be called Wonder Junior High. We're merging with the school down the road, but this is my school. At the bottom is me at my school. Like I said, I've been married for about 1.5 years. My wife manages the optical department in 3 optical clinics for a large optometry school in Memphis. Have 2 grown children, and since they're out of the house, we just raise our 2 cats and spoil our nieces and nephews. So that's a little bit about me. Teaching is my second career. I went into education about 5 years ago after going through a layoff. My original career is in marketing and in managing physician offices. I was working as marketing director for a large women's health practice in Memphis, went through a layoff, and was trying to figure out what I would do next with my life, and ended up going back to school and getting an education degree. And honestly, I think I missed my calling the first go around. So that's a little bit about me. Why this topic? I've kind of got a unique perspective on it, and it has led me to sort of list some things as I've gone on and share some things. I haven't always been an educator. Like I said, I'm only in my 5th year of it. And I developed a lot of experience as a parent, seeing the parent end of it, not only as a parent, but as a single parent. Most of the time my children were growing up, I was a single parent with split custody. I had them about 40% of the time. And unfortunately, it was not a very friendly situation. It was a situation in where I was often being pushed out. Fortunately, we were able to solve that. But I spent a lot of time at the schools as a parent, attending parent-teacher conferences, PTO meetings, going to church league basketball games, being involved in scouts. And so I'm able to sort of approach it from the perspective of a very fearful single parent, and realize that many of my parents now are in that same situation. Before I was a teacher, I was a marketing director for a women's health practice. And so I've been able to come into education and implement some of the things that worked really well in promoting women's health and use them as a teacher now, and it has worked really well. So that's what I want to share with you today, some things that I've picked up just from approaching education from 2 new perspectives: 1, that of a single parent, and 2, that of a former marketing director. There we go. Couldn't get my slide to change. Your goal for today, I start out with this quote: I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. That's by an author and clergyman who's now deceased, the name of Edward Everett Hale. Here's what that means to us in plain English. You're going to see a lot of techniques today, and realize ahead of time your life situation, your personality, and your strengths are different than mine. So I don't want you to go into this with the idea that Eric wants you to try all of these techniques. If you try to do all of these things, you'll overwhelm yourself. You'll quickly burn out. Hopefully you won't resent your presenter, but it would be hard to implement all of these things. I'm sort of in the perfect storm situation to do these as a teacher. I have a wife who is also in a professional setting and works a lot of hours. Her regular work schedule is 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so that allows me about 3 hours when school gets out to do a lot of things that a younger teacher with a young family would not be able to do. So you probably won't be able to do all of these things definitely put your family first. Don't sacrifice your family to do these things. But what I do want you to do is look at the bottom here, pick 2 to 3 action items from all of these techniques that you learned today and attempt to perform those with tenacity over the next few weeks. And I think you'll see a major difference. So again, don't try to do all of these things. Try to do 2 or 3 of them, and let's see what happens. So these are the topics we will cover in house, in-person meetings year, such as parent-teacher conferences, texting, phone calls, snail mail, videos, and event attendance. And then some other topics we'll cover at the end, tips on how to handle your social media, specific things to say to parents, and results that I've seen and that I think you will see from taking on this radical approach. So first, let's talk about open house. Most schools at the beginning of the year host an open house, and many of the parents come in and meet you. And it's a syllabus parent. Have something that you can hand to that parent with the basic expectations, guidelines, needs for your class. Mine is pretty basic here. There's my contact information, my email, cell phone, which I'm going to spend some time talking about in a moment, a brief summary of what we do in my class. I'm an ELA teacher for 7th grade, a supply list. Mine is very basic, pencils, notebook paper, and a binder, and I even accept pens. My class rules, which we call expectations, and I only have 5. And then a little bit about the curriculum and what text we'll be reading. So just something the parent can take home that gives the basics of what to expect this year. Now here's something that probably got your attention, and I hope you won't tune me out for the rest of the hour of seeing this. I freely give out my cell phone number, and so I encourage you to consider doing that. And I freely give out, as probably most of you do, my school email address. Let me share some things with you before you write off that idea. You're not giving up as much privacy as you might think you are by giving out your cell phone number. In fact, I've been doing this for 4 years, and I've had very few instances of parents who abuse the privilege of having my cell phone number. It is a privilege because most teachers don't provide that much access, but you're not giving up as much privacy and autonomy as you might think you are. Some things to remember: you don't have to answer every time the phone rings. And I don't. In fact, I tell my parents up front, text me first. If you call, I'm going to assume you're a telemarketer and not answer the phone. So if you need to talk, text me first, tell me who you are. I don't save all their numbers. Text me first, tell me who you are, and say, hey, can we talk? Or just text me what we need to discuss via text. So you don't have to answer every time the phone rings. You don't have to respond to every text, and you respond when you choose to do so. So you're not providing unlimited access to yourself. You still set the boundaries when you do this. You have the ability to set and post boundaries for phone communication. For example, you can say, I'm not available for school business between hours of 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. I tend to not do that. Again, I've got more of a flexible and open schedule, especially with my wife's work schedule. But I encourage you to do that. You're not giving the parent unlimited access to you. You do have the option of setting boundaries, and you have the option of blocking phone numbers if a parent does not handle the privilege properly. So again, you're not giving them unlimited access to you. You're giving them another option with numerous boundaries to respect and consider. All right. Leaving the topic of cell phones, back to your conduct in the in-person meeting. Smile. I know it sounds like common sense, but I have seen so many teachers, physicians, business executives who forget to smile. Smile as your parents come in. Look them in the eye. That shows confidence in yourself, and it shows trustworthiness. I teach my students, if you don't look someone in the eye, it says 2 things about yourself. You're not confident in yourself, and you can't be trusted. So smile, look the parents in the eye as you greet them. And I like to include my first name when I introduce myself. I know many teachers say I'm Mrs. Jones, I'm Mr. Harris. I say, hello, I'm Eric Kelley. What that does is that it humanizes me and it shows that I'm a real person. So I really encourage you to introduce yourself using your first name. Now, you're not giving your students permission to call you by the first name. You're just saying to another adult, I'm a human just like you are. I'm a parent just like you are. I'm a local citizen fighting the same battle as you are. First name says all that to the parent. So I really encourage you to introduce yourself using your first name. Listen as much as you speak during the house. Remember that you're not only dispensing information, you're also collecting information. Many times, not only as teachers, but just as people, we forget to listen. So definitely share all the information you need to share, but listen to your parents. Take notes, write things down that you'll need to know. When I was a parent going to these, one of my main purposes was to make sure I didn't get cut out of the picture with the school. And I must say, all the teachers throughout my children's elementary and high school years were very supportive, and all I can do is commend them. But one of my main purposes as a single parent when I would go to these meetings was to make sure they knew that I have a unique situation. My children are with me about 40% of the time, their mom about 60% of the time. It's not a cooperative situation, unfortunately. So please make sure you communicate with both of us. Anything you send out, please send it to both of us. Otherwise, I won't get the communication. And so I needed the teachers to listen to that and make note of that. Fortunately, they were all very cooperative through all of my children's school years. But now that I'm on the other side as a teacher, I've learned I need to listen because I have parents in that situation and other unique situations. So listen as much as you speak. Take notes, write things down. If you're like me, I have a horrible memory. I have to write everything down, so do that. Next, as you listen, make mental notes of anything you have in common. The more you have in common with the parent, the more you can relate to that parent and the parent can relate to you. And then finally, allow the parent to ask any questions before you conclude. Don't just wrap up, send the parent out the door. Give them time to ask any questions they may have. After the open house has ended, text or email each parent and thank him for attending. I can almost guarantee you'll be the only teacher who does that. And that parent will remember you all year for that. That is a major, easy, small step you can take to quickly get on good terms with those parents. All right, now let's move forward in the year, parent-teacher conferences. We've finished our open house. We are, say, 9 weeks into the school year, and it's time for the first parent-teacher conference. I've picked another quote here to introduce this topic. There is no greater impediment to the advancement of knowledge than the ambiguity of words. And this was stated by Thomas Reid, a Scottish philosopher. And here's why that quote. As a parent, before I was a teacher, I attended many parent-teacher conferences where I got no solid information about my child's performance. Now, the teachers were very nice. They were supportive. They were friendly. No complaints about them as people or the job they were doing in the classroom, but they had no solid information for me. When I left that parent-teacher conference, I still knew very little academically about what my child had been doing. I might have a grade. I might have just a few brief notations about what they were doing or what they needed to do better, but I didn't have a lot of solid information. And again, in my case, one of my goals was just to create relationships, make sure I wasn't being cut out of the picture. But I would have felt a lot better about those meetings had I had more solid information. So I try to give that now as a teacher. Be over-prepared and be very specific. One thing I try to do is have individual graded assignments with written feedback to review with the parent. I met with a parent, it was either 1 or 2 weeks ago during my planning period. And before I went to the office to meet the parent, I went through all my graded papers. I pulled out this particular student's graded papers, and this is an example of one. And so I always write feedback on it. And so when I went to the office, sat down and met with the parent and the student, I was able to flip through every single graded assignment, which already had feedback written on it, and show very specific mistakes and show the parent exactly why the student was making the grades that she was making. So there's no room for ambiguity. There's very little room to question you when you come in with this much data. The other thing, pull up the online grade book and review the specific data with the parent. I don't remember a teacher ever doing this when I went to my own children's parent-teacher conference, but I do it at every one now. So this is my grade book, and to keep me legal, I've laid out the names. If at all possible, of course, you don't want them to see the other students' grades, but I've highlighted one particular student, and I could go down the line there and say, hey, here's a quiz on the midwife's apprentice. She made in this case, it's 100. I double the value for quizzes, triple the value for tests, because our particular software doesn't weigh it. So you have to sort of weigh it yourself. So here's a quiz. She made a 90. Here's bell work. She made a 95. I can go through every single assignment and tell the parent exactly what grade she made, and then say, with all that considered, her average is 86 right now. So very specific information that shows exactly how I arrived at that particular grade. A lot of parents come in and that's their question, how is she failing your class? So when I pull out these papers that I've graded, and there is very specific feedback on them, and then I pull up the grade book and they can see every single grade, there's very little room to question me at that point. Conclude the meeting with a very specific plan of correction for any struggling students. Don't just say you need to do better, straighten up, get together, come up with a specific plan of action. And mine is usually always the same. I get back every assignment on which the student performed poorly, and I say, let's redo these, and I will regrade these, and I'll post a new grade, no strings attached. In fact, that's my policy year-round. Every class, every day. When I hand back assignments, I say, if you don't like your grade, get a blank copy off the wall. I have a wall with blank copies of all the assignments. Redo it. I'll regrade it. We'll put the new grade in. So you have total control over your grade in my class. Sadly, not every student takes advantage of it. I don't understand why, but we're getting them there. We're changing mindsets every day. But this is my plan of correction, and I nearly always get parent buy-in on this when they see that their student still has an opportunity to correct it and can literally turn an F into an A and learn in the process. 99% of the time, the parent quickly buys into this. Then I say, well, now, Mom, if he gets stuck, just text me. Like I said, they've got my cell number, and I can get on the phone with you if needed. No, I don't get on the phone with a student unless I know the parent is present. Very strict policy on myself. I don't text students. I only talk with a student on the phone if the parent first gets on the phone, lets me know he or she is there, and then hands the phone to the student. But let the parent know you're available. Usually, if they're stuck, you can text the answer. Most of the time, I haven't even needed to get on the phone. I have a few times. Most of the time, I can answer the questions quickly by text. So that's the plan of correction. And nearly always, the parent quickly buys into this and is definitely on board. Fortunately, I work in a school this year that offers and heavily promotes after-school tutoring. My principal, and I've got two of the greatest principals, assistant and head principal that you can ask for. They big time push after-school tutoring, and so I in turn push it as well. And many of the parents love this option. And I'll say, I can't give the one-on-one attention your child needs in class, but I can give it after school. The reading teacher at our school had my position last year. She was the ELA teacher and wanted to do something different. So she shifted over and became the reading teacher. So she has an ELA background and tutors with my material as well. So they have two teachers available on my material. And we have worked wonders with some students by providing after-school tutoring. I mean, we've had students go from F to A. It's an amazing opportunity. So if your school does offer that, push it heavily. It's a great option. So to wrap up parent-teacher conferences, when you approach them with solid data and a specific plan of correction, you nearly always get strong parent buy-in and strong parent support. Next, let's talk about texting. Texting is one of your greatest and most underused assets. Use it liberally. By that, I mean use it a lot. And there are lots of reasons to text the parents of your students. In fact, I encourage you to text every single parent occasionally. Let me stop there because the question is probably in my mind is why not use an app like Remind? I think Remind is a great app, and I have no opposition to it. Two things. One, a lot of the parents never sign up for it. Two, I just like to be personal, and I want to hit every single parent every time. And that's why I don't use apps like Remind. I'm definitely not opposed to it. I think it's a great app, but I want to make sure every single parent gets reached, and I'm willing to take the time to do it. Once I have texted all the parent once, it's just a matter of going down my list, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And it doesn't take that long once you've done it once. The first time is the time consuming. I have about 75 students. The first time it probably took an hour because I was entering every single number. Now they're in there, just copy, paste, copy, paste. I can do it in 20 to 30 minutes. So definitely text every single parent occasionally. These are some reasons to text. Of course, behavior management. If you have a child misbehaving, don't hesitate to text on the spot. Show the child the text, or immediately after class if a student's not behaving properly. On the other end of that spectrum, text to brag on the student. When you have had a behavior problem, the student has improved. I think that deserves recognition, and definitely text to brag on the student as well. Failing students. I review my grade book about every 1 to 2 weeks as I enter grades, and I text the parents of every student who's failing. And I have taken my failing numbers down dramatically by doing that. And of course, as I said earlier, I remind them often that tutoring is available after school. I remind them that we can make up those assignments, and I'll regrade them. Honor students, review your grade book every 1 to 2 weeks and text the parents of your honor students and let them know that their student, excuse me, is excelling. What I normally try to do is at the end of the 9 weeks, I check and see who made the honor roll and principal's list, or who was an honor student in my class, and I text all of those. So failing students, honor students, athletic commendations. I try to go to a lot of the basketball and football games. We'll talk more about that later, but just a quick, Serena did a great job at tonight's game. What a shot. Band and chorus drama events. Marquise did an amazing job of this trumpet solo tonight. So proud of him. You will probably be the only teacher who does that, and you will not be forgotten for doing it. I like to text test reminders. Here's one that I sent about a month ago. Parents, this is the list of words that will be on the vocabulary semester exam tomorrow. Please review these with your child. And I literally took a picture of the sheet with the words. So when the child says, well, I didn't bring that home, I lost it, you never gave it to us, the parents got it right there. So this is an actual text that I sent in December to prepare the students via the parents for the test that was coming up. So many of your students won't study for the test, but if you text the parent and let them know they have a test tomorrow, and especially if you give them the study material, it turns a lot around. Your test grades will go up initially doing this. Important class-related announcements. Last week, I handed out a new novel called Code Talker, and it's about the Navajo Indians who used their language in World War II to send messages, and the Japanese were unable to decode them because they couldn't speak Navajo. It's historical fiction based on true events, but many of the events within the novel have been made up. All that to say, I handed out the book to every student. Want to make sure that the student keeps up with them. So I sent this text to every parent, took a sticky note, wrote what I wanted the parents to know, stuck it on the book, took a picture, and this went out to every parent about a week ago, just letting them know your child has been given this book. Please encourage your child to read it, keep up with it, take care of it. And got some feedback already. Many of the parents, we were closed for ICE Tuesday through Friday of this week, got some feedback. Some of the parents have already had their students reading the book. So it made a huge difference. Texting school district announcements. what would immediately come to mind with a lot of people is, why do I need to do that? The district or the school has already done it. Inevitably, there will be some parents who are not on the school's list, and you become the hero. Most of your parents, yes, are on the school's or the district's phone list, but there will be a few that are not. And there will be numbers that you pick up along the way by doing this that the school doesn't have. And so you sort of become the hero when they didn't get the message from the district, but they did get the message from you. This is a real message I sent my birthday, Tuesday, January 3rd. We were supposed to go back to school from Christmas break, and we had major flooding, and they had to extend our break for a day. Totally unexpected. We get this message early in the morning. And so I sat up in bed for about a half hour and just retexted it to every parent. Let's talk about phone calls now. So that's texting. Reasons to call. Calling is also one of your greatest and most underused assets. Use it liberally a whole lot as well. And there are many, many reasons to call the parents of your students. Classroom management is one. Never be afraid to stop right in the middle of class and call a parent for behavior correction. Some teachers are afraid to do this, not for fear of the student or the parent, but for fear of losing instructional time. But I'm here to tell you, you gain the rest of your class period by doing that. When you stop, drop everything, call a parent, and I usually say something like, Fred is talking more than usual today. He's keeping me from being able to teach. Would you mind having a quick word with him? And 9 times out of 10, they're very supportive. Now, of course, you have the answering machines, the disconnected numbers. But most of the time when I get a parent, they're very supportive. When the other students see that you're willing to stop and do that, that usually corrects the rest of your behavior issues that period. So don't be afraid to lose 5 minutes to gain the other 40 minutes. Then there's the fake voicemail. At my very first teaching job, a sub taught me this. When you call and the number's been disconnected, the student can't hear what's going on your end. Pretend to leave a voicemail anyway. And that usually gets their attention. They don't know that you were talking to a deadline and there was nothing there. And it usually works. So pretend to leave a voicemail. Don't say, oh, the number's disconnected. Just play right along. Pretend to leave the mail. And that does the trick a lot of times. Then there's the good phone. When you have called home previously to address bad behavior or bad performance, and the student does what you ask them to do, call home and brag on that student. That reinforces the desired behavior. So many times a student has come to me and said, Mr. Kelley, can you call my mom and tell her I did good today? And my answer is absolutely. Glad to do it. We all crave encouragement. And so many of your students are acting out just because they want attention. They'll take positive attention, negative attention. They just want attention many times. And so if you can channel it in the right direction, absolutely be willing to make that good phone call and tell the parents what they did. And you really get parent buy-in when you do that. You get, thank you for letting me know. I'm so glad to hear that he's improved. So always be willing to make the good phone call too. And this year again, be willing to stop right in the middle of class and call a parent regarding failure to submit assignments. I have found that with 7th grade, I teach 7th grade ELA. We're having to create a new mindset because they're coming from elementary school and they're basically transforming from children to teenagers, and they're not used to having to take on the level of responsibility that we're giving them. And many of them come into the 7th grade with the mindset that I don't have to do my homework. If he doesn't address it, that means I got off the hook. I'm not worried about the grade. I just don't want to have to do it. And so middle school teachers are in the business of changing mindsets. And so many times I found just threatening them with the bad grade does very little, but when you get on the phone and call the parent, that gets their attention, especially when there's a class-wide pattern. I see in 7th grade, and when I taught in Tennessee, it was 6th grade because middle school and most of my Tennessee schools were 6 through 8. In Arkansas, it tends to be more 7th through 9. But when they come into middle school, you have a whole class-wide pattern a lot of times of not doing assignments. And so you're having to break that pattern again. You lose half a class period this out ahead long run starts to probably. One caveat on this, know your administration. I did work at a school once where administration was not overly supportive of that tactic. They didn't like you embarrassing the students. Know what your admin will and won't support. I have an admin this year that's very supportive of it, but don't get yourself in trouble. Know what you can and can't do with your admin. When you have a new student, call and introduce yourself to the parents. You'll be the only teacher who does it, most likely, and you will definitely be remembered for doing so. Now let's talk about snail mail. What is that? Let's talk about it. Author Susan Lindroth once said, "To write is human, to receive a letter, divine." Let's think about handwritten notes. Handwritten notes have just about become a forgotten art. But because of this, they're more powerful than ever. If you really, really want to get a parent's attention, write a note by hand on a piece of stationery, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send it through the mail. I have found that emails get deleted. They get read, but emails get read and deleted. Handwritten notes get placed on refrigerators and bulletin boards. My assistant principal wrote me a handwritten note this year, and it is tacked to the wall next to my desk at school. Handwritten notes get kept. They're constant reminders of that encouragement you receive. So if you really want to get that parent's attention or that student's attention, take the time to write a note, stick it in the mail. It will be kept for months. Personalized videos are another option. They're always completely unexpected. Parents usually don't expect to receive that. And they're not that difficult to create. Many times it's just a matter of pulling out your cell phone and hitting record. Sometimes the spoken word is much more powerful than the written word. These are some reasons to do that. I like to do them at the beginning of the year to introduce myself, and then I text the link to the YouTube video to every parent. I have made videos to recognize my honor students where I call them by name. And I'm really big on making motivational and preparation videos for standardized tests. In Tennessee, it was TCAP. In Arkansas, it's the ACT Aspire. But I like to make those, send them out every day to get them ready for the next day. Part of it's motivation. Part of it is just reminding them of some of the skills. I'm going to play one sample. This one is between 30 seconds and a minute. This is the one I sent out this year when the school year began. Good afternoon, Red Imp scholars and parents. I am Mr. Eric Kelley, and I will be your 7th grade English teacher this year. I can't wait to see you on Monday. Can't wait to get to know you. Parents, my contact information is here on the screen. If I can help you in any way this year, please don't hesitate to call me, and I will see you Monday morning. All right, I have, this is where you can access all of my videos, actually. On a better note, this is my YouTube channel. Feel free to take a picture of the address there. And I have almost 100 videos on here. When COVID hit, I made teaching videos every day. Since then, I've made introduction videos, TCAP videos, ACT Aspire videos, a little bit of everything. So there are numerous samples on here, and I would love for you to follow my YouTube channel and look at them. Let's talk about personal attendance now. Going to events and functions. Maya Angelou once said, "The wisest thing you can do is be present in the present, gratefully." Visibility is everything. I took this picture several nights ago at one of our East Junior High basketball games. Visibility is everything. Go to every event you can possibly go to. Band concerts, chorus concerts, plays, musicals, drama events, athletic events. If it's going on and you are able to be there, be there. That makes all the difference in the world. Let's talk about social media for a moment. Your goal with social media is to brand yourself online as a positive role model for students. What I do, Dr. Alexander called me. I'm not on Twitter, but I need to get on it. I am on Facebook. What I try to do with Facebook is brand myself as a role model. I try not to discuss hot political issues. I definitely have opinions on those issues, but personally, I try to keep those off of Facebook. I definitely discuss them one-on-one verbally, but I try to, for the most part, keep those off of Facebook. Constantly brag on your school. On my Facebook page, I'm constantly talking about what we're doing at East Junior High, what our students are doing. I like to repost school announcements, get like when other people repost school announcements. So I'm branding myself as someone who loves my school and loves my students. Be cautious about friending parents. Definitely don't friend students. Usually the only parents that I friend are the ones where my wife and I might have a family connection, not related to school. Be cautious about that. But here's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to go out and recruit parents as followers, but you do this with the realization they're going to come stalking you. And so when they do come stalking you and your page, you want them to see someone who loves his or her students, loves his or her school, and loves to teach. And so you're branding yourself for that stalking moment when it comes. Things to say to parents. These are some of my favorite quotes. And I've been able to break the ice, get the parent to let their guard down so many times by doing this. One of my favorite is, I raised one just like him. So I raised two sons, as I mentioned. They are 19 and 20 now. But my oldest son was a very good student, never had to worry about him in school with his grades or his behavior. My youngest son kept me awake many nights. He was the class clown, the one who didn't like to do his work, didn't like to stay organized. But fortunately, they both graduated and are doing well now. But when I have a student who is not doing his or her work, won't stay organized, I say to the parent, I raised one just like him. I understand what you're going through. And that allows them to let their guard down and see that, oh, he's been there. He's just like me. He had kids. Or she reminds me so much of my own daughter. Now, I do it with sons. I didn't have any daughters. I had two sons. But when you can tell the parent, hey, I've been there, your child reminds me of my own child and what we had to go through, you have a connection then, and it makes all the difference in how that parent relates to you. Then I use this one a lot. I was a single parent too, and I can say that with all honesty. Use your own situation. You may be a young lady fresh out of college. You're not married, you don't have children. You can't say, I raised one just like him, but perhaps you can say, I have a nephew just like him, or I have a brother just like him, or my sister has a son or daughter just like him. So customize it to fit your situation. Instead of she reminds me of my own daughter, you may need to say, she reminds me of my sister, my niece, my best friend's daughter. I was a single parent too. You may need to say my mom was a single parent. My dad, my uncle, my aunt, my grandmother. Find some place where you can honestly connect with them. Don't lie, obviously, but you can probably find some way to relate using some variation of these statements. You're doing a great job, Mom. I like to use that one. Being a single parent, I know that a lot of times we become very frustrated. We feel often not very supported. And I called a single mom probably 2 or 3 months ago to complain about her son not doing his work. And her response was not what I expected. She said, I'm doing the best I can. I'm a single mom. And I realized then I couldn't push it with her. She had all she can handle. So that's when you revert to something else. Like, you're doing a great job, Mom. I'm proud of you. Keep up what you're doing. And then I always ask, do you have my number? I want to make sure every parent has access to me and has my cell number. So usually the last thing I say in a parent-teacher conference is, do you have my number? So these are just quotes, things to say verbally that make all the difference in the world to the parents. as you're talking to parents, look for ways to relate to their particular situation. Share personal experiences. I usually share stories about my own children, or sometimes I can share stories about my wife's students, even though they're adults getting degrees to be eye doctors. You would be amazed at the similarities between doctoral students and seventh graders. But find personal experiences that you can share, and that breaks the ice every time, and breaks down the walls, gets the parents feeling comfortable with you. So as we get ready to close out, what are the results of taking this radical approach? Number one, you become the face of the school to your parents. When a lot of parents think East Junior High, they think of me. That may be a good or a bad thing, but I'm the one that is constantly texting them or calling them or sending them communication. So when they think of East Junior High, they think of me. So you become the face of the school to your parents. Next, the parents and students accept input from you that they would not accept from anyone else. Because I show up at all those basketball games, my athletes will listen to me, constructively criticize their work where they might not accept it so well from the teacher down the hall who has never been to one of their games. You give yourself credibility with your students by being present. Next, parents come to you with their questions, which you could look at as a negative because it gives you more responsibility, but it's actually a positive because you become the one to set the cultural norms. I would much rather them come to me than another teacher who may not handle it in a proper way. And so that's what we want. We want them coming to us so we can set the tone. Next, you build personal friendships that will help you long after the students have moved on. If you want to look at it briefly from a selfish standpoint, you're teaching students whose parents have connections in the community as well, and that will help you long after you have ceased to be that student's teacher. Grades improve, behavior improves, and I can honestly tell you, we have turned around so many grades at every school I've taught by doing these things that I've gone over today. We have turned around so many behavior issues by doing these things that I've talked about today. And you develop a reputation by which your credibility is seldom questioned. Every year, I'll hear a principal complain or say that a parent has complained that they haven't heard from any of the parents, but then they'll get, except Mr. Kelley. I always hear from Mr. Kelley. I got no complaints there. Mr. Kelley always communicates with me. And so by doing these things, I've developed a reputation where my credibility as a teacher is much stronger than the teacher who hasn't been communicating with them. And then finally, you become a strong asset to administration. When the parent calls and says, Ms. Jones is the only teacher that I've heard from this semester, but I hear from her all the time, you become an instant asset to administration. You're the teacher they want to make sure stays on board next year. So as we wrap it up, that's all of my material. I'm about to take questions. This is my information. Feel free to call me, text me, email me at any time. I am available to write or speak for your organization. I am a teacher full-time, and so I'm limited on what I can do, except in the summer. But generally speaking, I'm available to travel within about a 100-mile radius of the Memphis area, and I can speak virtually anywhere in the world. I'm on Facebook, and I encourage you to follow me there. And I do have a Teachers Pay Teachers page where I have a good bit of material posted. And I'll say this, if you have attended this conference, you see something on my Teachers Pay Teachers page you would like, feel free to email me and I'll get it to you at no charge. So that is the presentation, and I will turn it back over to Dr. Alexander and be happy to take any questions or comments.
Yes, so we have 2 questions, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor and that they can unmute themselves. But now we have 2 questions. So one is, have you ever had students who abused your cell?
I have. My first year of teaching, I had a student who got the number from, I think I had sent the syllabus home, and so my cell number was on it. And that very day, a student was texting me, a male student, he was texting me, appropriate, I think it was bad language, and I just blocked him. And the next day I said, hey, I blocked you. And that was it for that. This year, I had one female student text me. She was doing the right thing. There was a fight brewing the next day, and she wanted another teacher who had been involved in the situation to be aware of it. And so I didn't respond to the student, forwarded it to the teacher and got on the phone with the teacher so we could address the potential fight situation, and I let admin know. And then I texted the parent and said, your daughter just texted me this. Basically, she did the right thing. I'm glad she did, but I'm responding to you instead of her because I don't communicate with students. For the most part, no, but that would be the two examples that come to mind. Usually, well, I did have one other. I was texting the parents of all my failing students one night, and I got a response. The person was arguing with me, and it turned out the number we had in the system was not the parent, but the student. And I said, is this called the student's name, or is this mom? And she said, this is student's name. And I said, well, I need to end the conversation then. I don't text with students. And so that would be the three times that come to mind and how I handled it.
Thank you. And I love how you handled the student kind of reporting to you, because I was like, oh, how I love that you handled the situation and you didn't respond to the student, but you responded to the parent. I think that's so smart. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, question. Do you have a system that you use for emailing or texting parents to thank them for attending the open house? Do you have access to their contact information that your school collects, or do you collect it during open house?
I have it through the system. The system that we use to enter grades is also the attendance program, and it also has all their demographic information. So I just at the start of the year, I just pull it all from that, and I do it all manually through my phone, but it's all through the attendance and gradebook program that's online for the school.
And you just use your regular email to just email them?
I do. I use the school's email to email them, and then I just text them directly from my cell phone.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up for any questions on the mic. You can unmute yourself. If you unmute yourself, just wait for me to say your name, just in case multiple people unmute themselves. But I'm looking right now. I don't see anyone unmuting. Giving it a couple of more seconds. I don't see anyone unmuting. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Just a whole lot of love in the chat.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much for this webinar. I was listening. I did a lot of things when I was in the class with my parents, and I had really good communication. And I was one of those teachers that they would say, Miss Desiree always keeps us informed, or Miss Alexander always keeps us informed, blah, blah, blah. And I would always find these kind of new ways. I want to say, using the apps and things like that, it just depends on your culture, but they do have things like Remind and, different apps. You can get a cell phone number from Google Voice, and you don't have to think about like your personal number. You can think about the Google Voice number, those kind of things. So just keep in mind, there's always kind of tech ways that you can really do a lot of this stuff that Eric talked about. And what I want you to do right now is to, besides filling out the evaluation, put the 2 things that you plan to do in the chat, because I want to see what 2 things do you plan to do. Throw those in the chat so we can see them. And besides that, Eric, thank you so much. It just, I tell my teachers when I'm teaching classroom management to call every parent in the beginning of the year, like do it as soon, like the first week of school, call all of them and just introduce yourself. It makes a huge difference. So I love that you started with open house and parent conferences. Just thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.